Thank you for tuning in. A live stream new episode of the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show will be starting soon. With your host, minister, and author Stephanie M. Seaton. If you would like to be a guest on the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show, email Stephanie at stephaniemseatontheauthor@gmail.com.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show. I'm so glad that you're tuning in with us tonight on this amazing Tuesday night. We have a special guest in the studio tonight. We have E.Nigma, the author. Listen, I just got through talking to him about how many books he's got. He's going to blow you with the topics and what he's talking about. So many of the books are relevant to real life. So let's welcome E.Nigma to the studio tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm blessed to be here.
We're going to have a good time tonight. This gentleman has written over 31 books, 32 coming out soon, and 33 at the beginning of next year. I had the pleasure of meeting him. It's probably been about a year ago now. We were at the Dock Bookshop in Fort Worth, and I remember going over to his table. And it was kind of close to like my first one or two events that I had even been to. So I was kind of learning some stuff still of how to set up a table. And this gentleman had books all over the place and stands, and I was just really blown back. So very happy to have the opportunity to interview you tonight. We've passed each other in several different venues, and so I'm glad we finally locked it in
Yes.
and we have this conversation tonight. So again, thank you for being here tonight. Let's just jump in there. One of the things that I ask all my first time guests, E.Nigma, is for you to tell us, the audience, who you are. So kind of just describe who you would like for us to know you to be.
I always tell myself I'm a storyteller. I know a lot of people want to be novelists, they want to be authors, they all want these labels, but the label I always like is storyteller because I work in different platforms. I do novels. I've also started off in doing screenplays and
Okay. So you began
so pretty much, can you hear me?
Yeah, it was delayed for a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. But yeah, so I started off doing screenplays and scripts and things like that, and then I end up moving things over to the novels. And I always just see myself as that storyteller, the person who can take us a different subject and really go into it. And I would really say that's the biggest thing about me as a creator.
Yeah, I love that. And we were talking when we were talking about you being on the platform. You were very open and transparent, and you were like, I don't know about my books being on your show. And I was like, well, hey, we all have a story of healing, empowerment, and transformation. And your two books that are pretty much the top books right now that you're promoting, these books they're relevant for everybody. The first one, they're both, well, let me say this first of all, they're both award-winning books. Okay. And the first one, Between Two Wives. When you hear the title, you're like, whoa, what's going on? It's a psychological thriller. Let me just say this. I'm impressed with just the fact that you're writing outside of the box. You're probably the first person that I've talked to in the last few years that is writing psychological thrillers with brown skin. So congratulations on that, because you don't have to stay within the box. You can be open and creative and do, so much more than just a novel or just a memoir or things of that sort. So I salute you for that. How did you come about writing this book and the title? how did you come up with the title Between Two Wives?
So I came up with Between Wives. It was a novel, honestly. So this is just kind of a story. So when I'm typically writing, I just name a book something just until I can kind of get the story out and stuff like that. And so the working title for it was Between Wives. And it just stuck so well with the story. I went on ahead and just kept it as that. So Between Wives is basically a psychological thriller. It's about a police officer. He's working a job. And as he's working this job after a shootout, he raids this house. When he goes into the house, there's nothing in there. When he leaves, it's 10 years later, his wife and kids don't exist, and he's married to somebody else, hence the name Between Wives.
Right.
And the story actually came as a dream. I had a dream. That whole portion that I just told you was actually a dream, and I woke up and I was like, that's a book. Now, I didn't know how it was going to end or, how I'm going to build off of that, but that's what it ended up being. So that was the best thing behind it.
Okay. And to know more, you have to go and buy the book.
Yes. So this is one of those books that it's always hard for me to really kind of go into any more details because I don't want to spoil it for you.
Right.
My wife, she was one who read this book, and she kept texting me as she was reading it, asking me, wait, what's really going on? I said, just keep reading. Just keep reading. You'll get there, So it's one of those things that you just got to keep going to in order to see the surprising ending. At least I hope it's surprising.
Oh, well, I'm sure that you left a cliffhanger for all of us to be able to read the book and find out. And then his second award-winning book that we want to talk about tonight is The Illustrious Solitude. And this book right here, I mean, this hits the platform so much. My story is one of healing from trauma and reaching back to help other people. And one of the biggest things about trauma is a lot of it happened to most of us in our childhood, right? And so you have this book, Illustrious Solitude, that's about a pop star that went through trauma early in life. Can't seem to get past it, seeking revenge over, I guess turning the other cheek, if you want to say. So kind of tell us a little bit about that, like the title and kind of the story behind it.
So this was one of the stories that I actually, like I told you, I started off doing like a lot of script writing and stuff. So this was like a character study script that I always loved because really you're following this pop star. And you would think somebody who has everything in the world, money, fortune, fame, could just live happily. But there's some trauma that she's had in her past life or her past time that she just cannot let go. She's a very vengeful person. Anybody who's wronged her basically feels her wrath. So the title Illustrious Solitude comes from she's built this whole solitude of herself, and nobody's actually tried to battle that trauma until she hires this publicist who puts up a fight to see if he can help her get past that trauma. And so in a way, it's a love story, but at the same point in time, you see the things that happen to this character throughout the book. And the great thing about it is, being that I wrote it initially as a script, when you put it in a novel, you can flesh it out even more. And I love that because this was a character I really wanted to flesh out, to really dig deep into that trauma and give a little more examples of what she had to overcome. And, it's a lot of pain. People just see the outside of it, but there's a lot of things that she went through. And so it's really hard for her to kind of move past it. So I thought it was a great opportunity. And when I sent it off to try to, see if I can get an award for it, to just, go into competitions, I was shocked that somebody got it. I was like, okay, because sometimes, certain books, they typically don't really mess with. So this one was kind of a shock to me that somebody saw what I actually did and actually seen what I was trying to do with it. And it was just, it was an honor.
Congratulations on your awards. And, as a writer, when you put your heart and soul into something, you definitely, want it to be recognized. And some of the books that, we put our hearts into, it takes a little bit deeper. You have to dig a little bit deeper for those books. And it sounds like one of those books that really took you on a journey as well. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I knew the story was there. I didn't know, if it would be something that can help somebody. Different stories have different effects on different people.
Right.
But it was just something that I don't know, it just felt right to basically put it on paper.
Yeah.
And it was always one of my favorite scripts because I just really love this character and, just to show her journey. And so,
Hmm. Yeah, and that's important. I like the fact that you write from different genres. And how did you decide that? Like, did you just kind of decide I'm not going to be stuck like in one genre, or I'm just gonna just tap in every like? How did you decide that?
people say that I'm a Cancer sign, and people say Cancer signs are all emotional, which I don't believe in any of that. But as a person, I'm a big movie watcher. I love watching movies, and one thing I always tell people is, sometimes I want to watch an action movie, sometimes I want to watch a comedy, sometimes I want to watch a psychological thriller. And so it's
Yeah,
hard for me to stay in one genre. It's just basically what I feel. Like if I feel writing a love story, I'll write a love story. If I feel like writing a coming of age, I'll do that. And
yeah,
that's why I went with the pen name E.Nigma, because you never know what you're going to get from me. You may get a romantic comedy, you may get a sci-fi book. You just never know. And so it's really a mood thing for me. I don't like watching the same thing on TV, so I don't like writing the same thing in novels. So
yeah. For those of you that are just now tuning in, we are talking to author Enigma tonight. We are talking to the author of 32 books, 33 in the works, coming up at the beginning of the year, about to release one in November. He's got a lot of major things going on, genres just across the board. And I mean, I know that you're going to find a good read if you check him out. His books are available on all major platforms. I want to read a little bit about his bio. So he began his writing career as a scriptwriter, as he said earlier, with his first script, The Afflicted, sparking a journey into film and storytelling. His early work was brought to life by Heaven and Hell Entertainment in a short film based on his series, The Professionals. He later wrote, edited, and directed his first feature, Twisted Affair, and expanded into animation. Well, I did not know that, but I should have picked that up by your book covers. Creating a cult followed series inspired by The Professionals. Despite exploring video and animation, his passion for writing remained constant. And that is evident with the number of books that you have. In 2016, he published his debut novel Confessions of a Call Center Junkie, The Diary of Lellow, a mock diary with a recovering addict navigating workplace struggles. And since then, he has went on to write so many multiple genres, including drama, sci-fi, romance, crime, psychological thrillers as well, building a diverse work. And so tonight we salute you. Just honored again to have you here on the platform. Kind of tell us a little bit about you, the man, the author behind the scenes. What did life look like growing up for you? Did you just kind of think when you were elementary, middle school, hey, I'm gonna be an author? Like what were you like in your younger days?
to be honest with you, I never really thought I would be a writer. To be real honest, English was one of those classes that I had to work harder in because I was more of a logical person. So math made sense to me.
Okay.
English and interpretation and
Yeah.
stuff that was like, But
Yeah.
because I had to work so hard at it, it actually stuck. And so when it started to, really, like I said, like watch movies and things like that. I believe there was, I can't remember the director's name. I think it was Stanley Kubrick, who says, if you haven't seen the film that you want, go make it yourself. And
Mm,
so that was one of the things that motivated me to jump into the scripts. I've seen a lot of movies. I used to do a lot of little movie reviews. I still do on a podcast on occasion. And
okay.
so I took it and I said, you know what? I want to do it myself. And so I started developing different scripts. And, like you said, reading about me in the past, I did actually try to film a movie. It did not come out the way I wanted, but hey, I could say I did it.
Hey, yeah,
you
that's what
know,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so basically from there, it was just like, I stood in Hollywood trying to do scripts and things like that. I had two scripts that were actually optioned, but didn't go anywhere. So at that point, that's when I made that switch to go to novels. I had all these scripts that I had written, and so some of them actually turned into novels. So I would have never have thought that growing up that I would actually write one book, let alone, up to 33. So.
Right. Okay. Looking back on your writing career, if you had to narrow it down to one or two, what accomplishments are you most proud of?
I will give it two. The first accomplishment would be actually, my first book, clearly.
Yeah.
When I first started, I put it on Amazon. I didn't worry about it. I was like, just okay. And, when I actually did a print copy and just put it in my hand, it just felt so like, wow, I did this. It was just one of those experiences that new authors, when you get your first book, it's just, you can't explain it. It's just a feeling of just like, wow,
Yeah.
And I guess the second thing would be my first sci-fi book. When I first started writing, I love sci-fi. And I didn't write a sci-fi book on my first three books, I believe, because I didn't really think there was a market for it. And so when I wrote this sci-fi book, this is the story I've always wanted to write since starting writing. And so when I first wrote it, and I did it, I said, I don't care if I don't sell one copy.
Yeah.
This is my book. I wrote this for me. This is a story I've had in my head for years. I finally got it out on paper. And I didn't care, like, okay, I don't care if anybody buys it. It's my book. It's a book that I will always cherish. So I think those are like the big two highlights as far as my writing career.
Okay. So what do you think is the most important element of good writing? What would you define that as?
Now, everybody's going to have their own interpretation. For me, it's great dialogue. I've read books, that the characters, the dialogue can seem a little inconsistent or unrealistic. One of again, this is me having my movie background. One of my favorite directors is Quentin Tarantino. He makes movies. If you watch his movies and the dialogue that he presents, it seems casual. It seems like he's not writing it. These people are actually saying it. Right. And I love that aspect of it. And you really, in my opinion, have to have great dialogue. I mean, you can describe the scenes. I know certain books can take 5 pages to describe one scene. Mm-hmm. But if they don't have the dialogue, to me, it takes me out of the book if it's not realistic. And so I try to make my novels basically like that as far as the dialogue. Like I want it to be casual, that you can actually read this and say, hey, I can imagine two people actually talking like this. It's not just, just kind of stilted or just kind of stiff or whatever, or too proper. Like everybody is not going to mm-hmm. talk the same. There's going to be a variation of how people communicate back and forth. So for me, mm-hmm. it's always the dialogue. I think that's really the most important thing.
Okay. Now, you have written 31 books. Number 32 comes out in November, 33 in the beginning of the year. You have seen a lot of characters. you have created a lot of characters. I want to know, well, a two-part question. Which character that you created was the most fun because it was so much outside of you?
Ooh, outside of me.
Yeah.
I would say there's a character that, well, I could talk about the book we just talked about, Illustrious Solitude. Yeah. Serena, she is the pop star, the one that's the main character of the story. And it is outside of me because, I look at her and think to myself, well, if I was that rich and famous, I really wouldn't care what happened in the past, but also I have not gone through that type of trauma that she went through. So it's easy to judge when you're on the outside looking in. Right. But yeah, I would say that was the character that's most outside of me because, it's one of those things that the anger and the rage, even as the author of her, I don't understand it fully. You know, it's just that's the way that she is.
Yeah.
And you know, when you've accomplished all that she had, you know, part of the trauma, I'm not going to go into too much details of it, but part of the trauma happened when she was trying to ascend to that pop star, trying to make it in the industry. And
Right.
so, you know, just to really just finally, you know, just like we talked about with me in the novel and just how excited I was to make it, I think that would be enough for me to just kind of move on. Like, okay, I've moved past all the struggles and, you know, things that I've dealt with, but for a character like her and then what she went through, you
Yeah.
know, I can kind of see, you know, once you read the book and see how she is and see her background, you can kind of understand it. But it is outside of me. I'm more forgiving than she is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And the second part of it is which one stands out as your favorite? And tell us why.
So I would have to go with Xavier. So Xavier is a character on my book called 13. It was my attempt at a young adult novel. And the main premise behind it is the character, he's about to hit his 43rd birthday or what have you. And he thinks about the last time that he was actually truly happy. And he
Mm.
talks about his 13th year. And the reason why I like that, because, and it's not as bad as him, but, you know, when I was around that age, it was like, man, looking back at everything, because I was in New Orleans, we dealt with Katrina and all these types of things. And then we also, I was an Army brat. And so we traveled the world a lot. And so I went from Colorado to New Orleans, which I always tell people it's like going from Beverly Hills to Compton. Okay. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
And so the last year that he stayed in Colorado, you know, that was the last time he felt that he was actually a kid. He was actually felt he was happy. And so this mysterious man gives him the ability to live his 13th year over again. And he realizes, yeah, things weren't always what you thought it was. You know, being an adult has different problems than being a kid. And it also different things that he was fearful of as a kid. He's not fearful of now because, you know, he still maintains all of his knowledge and stuff like that, which causes trouble and, you know, can alter the future that can really alter his life. So it was a nice story. And I love that book because I always revisit it because it reminds me of that year, that final year that I was actually out there in Colorado. And so, you know, it's just one of those things that I actually read that book often.
Oh, that's good. When you can go back and read your own work, you know, multiple times, that is a blessing. Um, what advice would you offer to someone that's aspiring to become an author on starting their writing journey? What would you say to them?
The main thing is to write. You know, your first draft is going to suck. Trust me. Just keep writing.
Yeah.
Just keep writing. Keep writing. And a lot of times, because a lot of people always ask me about writing a book, but then they never follow through because they just don't have the habit. And what I always tell people is you have to do something every day, even if it's just writing one sentence, because a sentence leads to a paragraph leads to a page leads to a chapter, and then you start it over again.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of keep doing. You have to build that habit. You know, like when I finish a book, it's like the worst time for me because I always say that the characters are speaking to me in my head. And when the book is done, they go silent. And it's just like, okay, I don't know what to do. You know, I always tell myself, oh, I'm going to take a break. You know, I've written this and that. But then after a few days, I'm already working on the next story because I've built that habit of just doing something towards the writing every day. Yeah. And so it's really hard for me to break free from it because that's why I've written so many books, because I just can't take that break. I'm always developing on to the next one. But if I have to just keep writing, you know, don't worry about it. You're going to have to go back through it, fix errors, fix sentence structures and all that type of stuff. But once you have it on paper, I take it like it's clay. You can mold the clay now into the story that you really want to do. So, but you have to get it on paper first. That's the hardest part, getting it on paper. once it's on paper, then you go back. Now you're just fixing everything. And so that's always my advice to people who are trying for the first time.
Oh yeah. I always tell people when I'm working with publishing clients and they're like, how do I get started? I'm like, just start writing, get it out of your head. And a lot of people try to start out with format, and it's like, don't start with format, just write, just get it out of your head. Yeah. And I think more people would probably write if they didn't overthink it, thinking that they have to know what the chapter is and they have to know how many chapters and how many words. And I'm like, don't even think about all that. Just tell the story.
Yeah. Just put it on paper, because once it's on paper, that's when the real work begins, because now you have it all on there, and then you'll go back and start to structure it to a point where, okay, now this is the story that flows through. So, don't get discouraged just because, oh, well, I don't like how this sounds. And that's people will sit there on one chapter and sit there and keep trying to edit and get it perfectly. I'm like, no, chapter's done, move on to the next chapter, then move on to the next one. Then you go back and you can clear some things up.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I always ask authors, what is your favorite time to write? Are you an early morning writer, just whenever it hits you? Do you write late at night? What is your favorite time to write?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a, this isn't the only thing I do. I have a 9 to 5 like everybody else. And so typically the only time I get to write is after work. But if it was up to me, I would be a late night, like really late night writer, because everything's quiet. Everybody's asleep in the house. So basically it's just me and my thoughts. And I can even say like an early morning, but a lot of times early morning, I'll stick with late night. Yeah, late night works better because, I used to work jobs where I was like up to like 3 and 4 in the morning, and those just seem so quiet to be able to develop things. But right now it's just like after work, I have basically 2 jobs in my head, because as soon as I get home, all right, so what I got to do for this next book? Am I editing? What am I doing? Am I writing something? So typically I'll write, after work.
I'm still in that world too. I work a 9 to 5 Monday through Thursday. And then I go into my other world most days when I come home. So trust me, I'm still there too. And for me, I talk about this a lot. For me, writing has become like therapy. And I was laughing a few minutes ago when you said when you finish one book, you're automatically thinking about the next one. That's how my mind goes too. Like I've probably been the longest in the last few months without writing, and that's like 3 months. In the last 3 months, I haven't started another book, and that's a lot for me. I have a few that I've written, and I haven't went back to kind of build on them. You know how you have some that you started it, you're waiting for it to, like, the inspiration to hit you a little bit more. And I'm trying to decide if I want to work on one of those or start something new. But your brain is just constantly going. So I get that, because I'm always thinking, I come up with titles or I come up with characters I'd like to write about. And then I'm like, how am I going to start that? What am I going to talk about? Or do I want to go back to one of my other books and redo it?
You're right. I'll tell you a quick story. So the 32nd book I had already finished like maybe a few months back. So it's basically been sitting there. Typically what I like to do is after I finish a book, I like to give it maybe about a week before I jump back in. But after I finished that book, I just kind of put it to the side, and another sci-fi idea came to my head. So I started just writing that just for right now. Next thing you know, I've written that entire book. And I'm like, I haven't even gone back to the other one yet to kind of go through the process. So I had to, I'm just now getting back into that 32nd one and I like it this way because, there's a lot of things that you may forget, and, you're reading it for the first time. And so now you're experiencing the story as best as it's going to be, as like it's your first time reading it. So I did a whole project. I never do that. I don't know why I did it this time, but I did a whole nother project in between the waiting period. Typically it's a week, but once I started this project, I didn't want to stop. So.
Oh, I get it. Well, you know what? It's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. I want to ask you, my platform is generally we talk about healing, we talk about empowerment, and we talk about transformation. Which one of those words stands out the most for you? And kind of tell us a story about which one stands out the most for you.
I would say healing. Like a few years ago, I lost my father, and it was one of those things that just, lost him to cancer. It just came out of the blue. Like he was diagnosed, and like I think it was he got sick around Easter, and then by June he was gone.
Oh,
And so it was
wow.
just one of those
Yeah.
things that just kind of, I've never really had to deal with loss at that level before. And then soon after that, I had a uncle who passed away and grandfather who passed away. This was all like within a year. And so it was just like one of those things that was just devastating, and I don't necessarily think that you truly heal from that. I think you just kind of learn to live with it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, but the reason I said healing is because, you know, the way that I grieve and the way that, say, my sister grieves, my mother grieves, everybody does it differently.
Right.
Me personally, I'm the type of person who likes to, okay, let's move on. Let's try to move on and just kind of live your life, because I know if something like that happened to me, I would want that same thing for my wife and kids. Like, okay,
Mhm.
you mourn me, but you got to move on.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I kind of look at it. But it was one of those things, the writing definitely helps, with
Mhm.
the healing process, trying to get a lot of that, out of my mind and just kind of put that focus on something else. But, it's been, like I said, it's been a few years, and like you don't never lose it. But I feel that the process is kind of working with me to be able to heal and just become, what I need to be for those who are still struggling. And so
Yeah.
that's really my, main thing, just really healing not only myself, but try to heal others as well.
Yeah. I went to an event tonight before the podcast, and I heard the story of this lady, and I'm compelled to kind of tell a little bit of it tonight, with what you were just talking about, the power of healing, and I want to throw in there also forgiveness. Okay. I went to an event where it was for an organization called CARE, which is about Christ abortion recovery experience. And the guest speaker was actually a woman that survived an abortion.
Mm.
She had a twin that passed away during the abortion process, but she actually survived.
Wow.
And the healing part of this is this. So she survived the first abortion. Her mother went back to have a second abortion, but could not have a second abortion when she realized she was still pregnant with one of the twins. Then, after she had her, she gave her up for adoption.
Mm.
So she was attempted abortion, and then another attempt, and then to be given up for adoption. She talked and she told the story of E.Nigma tonight on how she now has a relationship with her birth mother.
Mm.
And through all of those things that happened, she was able to have communication where her mother told her what happened, but also hear that her mother was only 13 when it happened.
Oh, wow.
And when she and her mother reunited and she went through the process of hearing the mother's story, she was able to give grace to her mother. And she was able to forgive her mother. And her mother found healing as a result of the daughter telling her story, if that makes sense. Right?
Oh, perfect
I
sense.
was
Perfect sense.
listen, I was just like, oh my God, you know.
Right.
But I said all that, I shared all that to say this. We can sometimes not really know what people are going through.
Right.
And the lady that was speaking was talking about how she was so against abortion. and people who have had abortions and all these things, not knowing she was a survivor of abortion.
Mhm.
And so I said that to say this. So many times we pass judgment. We think that a person is this way or that way. And we all are dealing with so much stuff, and if we would stop and listen to each other's stories, whether it be through podcasts, through books, through interviews or whatever, we would find that we all have so many things that are similar. Even though they may be different, they're still similar, the human part of it, right?
Right.
And when cancer strikes a family, it doesn't just affect one person in the family. It hits
Right.
everybody in the family. When
Exactly.
depression hits a family, it doesn't just affect the person that's depressed. It affects the people that they're not talking to or that they're not around. When abortion, it doesn't matter what the topic is. It's never just about that one person. It's
Right.
so much bigger. And so I just think, when the Lord helps us to get to the point of healing and talking about those things and being able to help other people, that's what it's really about. So
Right.
I want to salute you for what you're doing with your books. You're making us laugh. You're making us think. These titles are really something else. But then once we actually hear what the story is about, I mean, kudos to you for stepping outside of the box and writing these stories. And I salute you. I'm very happy that we were able to connect tonight to be able to do this. And definitely reach back out to me. We got to hear about these next works that you've got going on.
I will definitely reach out. Like I said, I'm still going through the edit process. I'm trying to finalize this last one, and then the other one, I'll jump on that. It'll be. I don't try to set dates for myself, but it'll be sometime early next year, and we'll see where it goes from there. I try to really do some things for like the different events that I'm going to. Like the one I'm working on now, I'm going to an event in Houston in October. I thought I would have it done by then, but it's not going to be so. We'll see where it goes.
Can we hear the titles, or is that top secret?
I don't really have the title for one. Yeah, I'm not ready yet because I'm still kind of up in the air with a couple of titles. I will say this one. One of them is a sequel to my espionage thing. So I made a James Bond-esque type storyline, a female spy. And so the first one is called No One Needs to Know. And the title for the one that's coming out in November is No One Dies Twice. And so I'm trying to keep that James Bond type name with it to kind of flow with it. So it's a sequel to that one. And so that one, I know. The sci-fi one, I have no clue what I'm calling it yet.
Okay. So definitely stay tuned to what E.Nigma has coming up. I'm going to put the links again. So these links will be in the comments no matter what time you happen to watch this interview. You'll be able to find these links. So we've got the link to his Amazon author page, the link to his Mind of a Black Author podcast. And then we also have a link to his YouTube novel podcast. So make sure that you check them out. Please tell them, how can they get in touch with you on social media, E.Nigma?
So all my social media, if you go to my website, it's www.enigmakid.com, and that's www.enigmakidd.com. My Facebook is on there. My Instagram is on there. My Twitter, which I barely use, it's on there though. So any type of social media you want to get in touch with me, you can actually go to the website. And the website also shows a listing of all my different podcasts I'm doing, the different novels that I have. I also have a section called Character Corner where you can kind of see what I'm thinking behind the scenes on certain characters that I created. And it also has a listing of the different events that I'll be attending to and different pictures from the event. So basically, you go to the website, you'll see everything me, including the social media and other links like that.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to have a very special episode of the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show. And then we'll also have, this week is different. So we just kicked off our third season, Enigma. And so this week, I actually have 3 podcast episodes that are going to be going. There's sometimes when it's just a podcast, and then there's sometimes, because I am a minister as well, that, hey, I just have a ministry topic that we just need to hit. So this week we actually have 3 episodes. So we have tonight's episode. Tomorrow night, we will have Miss Shamika Jackson here. I had the pleasure of being a part of an anthology called My Salvation Story. And my God, there was so many women that got into the project, Enigma, that we had to do 2 volumes.
Wow, so, that's
yeah,
good.
yeah, it's amazing. And so we'll be doing that conversation on tomorrow night. And then on Thursday, I will let you know. But on Thursday, you want to tune in as well. Okay. So
Definitely.
Thank you again so much, Enigma, for being here tonight. Make sure that you guys follow and support him. And thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Make sure that you like, tag, and subscribe. Make sure that you share this episode. Okay. All right. Final thoughts. Take us out, Enigma. What are your final thoughts?
For all those authors out there, keep the peace. For some reason, there's a lot of drama. I don't understand. So keep the peace, keep writing, and just keep following your dreams, everybody. I mean, like I said, I never would have imagined I would have written 1 book, let alone 33. So if I can do it, you can do it. Trust me. Just keep the faith, keep the dedication, and just keep rocking and rolling out there.
All right, you guys heard it here. Thank you again for tuning in and being supportive of the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show. We will see you back tomorrow night at 7:30. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
If you would like to be a guest on the Stephanie M. Seaton Sunday Show, email Stephanie at stephaniemseatontheauthor@gmail.com.